The disappearance of Nancy Ellen Guthrie. Tucson, Arizona, February 2026. The porch light was still on. That is the first thing they noticed when they arrived. The light burning in the middle of the afternoon, the way it does when someone turned it on the night before and never came back to switch it off. The door was locked. The house was quiet. And inside, everything was exactly where it should have been. Her reading glasses folded on the side table. Her Bible near the chair she always sat in. Her medication lined up on the kitchen counter, in the precise order she kept it, the way a woman does when she has taken the same pills at the same time every day for years and her life depends on not getting it wrong. Her phone was there. Her wallet. Her car in the garage with the keys still in it. Even her dog, sitting inside, calm, unbothered. As if nothing had happened. The only thing missing was the woman who lived there. It took them a moment to understand what they were looking at. The house was too ordinary. Too undisturbed. The kind of stillness that reads at first as peace, until you realize that peace and absence are not the same thing, and that one of them has a very different explanation. Then they saw the front porch. The blood told them she had not left on her own. Her name is Nancy Ellen Guthrie. She is 84 years old. She has a pacemaker, a heart condition that requires daily medication, and limited mobility that would have made it impossible for her to walk more than 50 yards without help. She lived alone in the Catalina Foothills north of Tucson, Arizona, and sometime in the hours between 9:50 in the evening on January the 31st and 11:56 in the morning on February the 1st, 2026, she was taken from that house. The pacemaker device was found on the floor. Not removed carefully. Forcibly detached and left behind, in a home that showed no sign of forced entry, by someone who had ripped the doorbell camera from the wall first and who had been watching this property for weeks before they ever set foot on that porch. The FBI deployed hundreds of agents. The President of the United States made a personal phone call. A $100,000 reward was posted. Billboards went up in 5 cities. 18,000 tips came in. 13 days later, Nancy Guthrie has not come home. This is Case Analysis Bureau. And what I am about to walk you through is not speculation, not rumor, and not a case that has been filed away and forgotten. Every fact in this analysis comes from confirmed law enforcement records, official statements, and verified forensic findings. This is what we know. This is what the evidence says. And somewhere in all of it, in the footage, the timestamps, the ransom notes, the jurisdictional failures, and the silence from whoever is responsible, is the answer to where Nancy is right now. Subscribe to Case Analysis Bureau and turn on notifications before we go any further. This is an active case and we cover every development as it breaks. And right now, in the comments below, I want you to answer one question. What is the detail from this introduction that already does not sit right with you? The dog that did not bark. The door that was not forced. The pacemaker left on the floor. Tell us what you are already thinking. We read everything. Now let's go through this case from the beginning. She was 84 years old. She could walk maybe 50 yards on her own. She lived alone. And sometime in the dead of night, she vanished. No forced entry. No broken windows. No sign that anyone had broken in at all. But her blood was on the front porch. Her pacemaker had been ripped from its connection and left on the floor. Her phone, her wallet, her medication, all of it still sitting exactly where it always was. And Nancy Guthrie herself, completely gone. This is not a cold case. This is not something that happened years ago in a file gathering dust in some evidence room. This is happening right now, as you watch this video. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. Somebody watching this video right now knows exactly where Nancy Guthrie is. If this case matters to you, and it should, subscribe to Case Analysis Bureau right now and hit that notification bell. We cover active cases like this one the moment new information breaks. And before we go any further into what happened to Nancy, drop a comment below and tell me, do you think she is still alive? Tell us what you think. We read every single comment. Now let's build this case. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born on January the 27th, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She turned 84 years old just 5 days before she disappeared. She had been a widow since 1988, when her husband Charles died of a heart attack at 49 while on a mining trip in Mexico. She raised 3 children on her own, Annie, Savannah, and Cameron. For 17 years, she worked in public relations at the University of Arizona. She was active in her church. She was sharp, present, and deeply connected to the people around her. Everyone who knew her said the same thing. She had no dementia. No confusion. No reason in the world to wander off in the night. But she did have a pacemaker. And she had chronic heart conditions that required daily medication to keep her alive. Her mobility was limited. 50 yards, maybe, was the furthest she could walk on her own. She lived alone in a burned adobe home in the Catalina Foothills, in an unincorporated area north of Tucson near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. That placed her under Pima County jurisdiction, not the Tucson Police Department. And that distinction, as we will see, becomes one of the most important and troubling details of this entire investigation. Her daughter Savannah Guthrie co-anchors NBC's Today Show. You know the face. But this case is not about celebrity. It is about an 84-year-old woman who could not survive without her daily heart medication, and who has now been missing for 13 days. Now let's go back to Saturday night, January the 31st, 2026. At 5:32 in the afternoon, Nancy took an Uber to her daughter Annie's house for dinner. Annie is married to Tommaso Sion, Italian-born, 50 years old, a 6th grade and AP biology teacher at Basis Oro Valley School in Tucson. They live about 10 minutes from Nancy's home. The evening was completely uneventful. Dinner. Conversation. Family. Nothing unusual was reported. Then at approximately 9:48 in the evening, Tommaso drove Nancy home. Her garage door opened at 9:48. It closed at 9:50. Tommaso left. Nancy was alone. And that moment, is the last time anyone who loved her saw her alive. Now here is the timeline. Every single timestamp that follows has been confirmed by digital forensics and official law enforcement records. 1:47 in the morning, February the 1st. Nancy's Google Nest doorbell camera disconnects. Not a glitch. Not a power surge. Physically disconnected, someone tore it clean off the wall. 2:12 in the morning. Despite the camera being offline, its residual motion detection system registers a person. The cloud subscription is dead. The hardware has been removed. But something in the back-end architecture is still sensing movement inside the property. 2:28 in the morning. Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from her phone. That is the outer edge of the abduction window. At that moment, she is either unconscious, physically restrained, or she has already been taken from her home. Then nothing. Hours pass. The sun comes up. The morning goes by. 11:56 in the morning, family members arrive at Nancy's home. She had missed a scheduled virtual church service with a friend, completely out of character for her. They walk inside. Her phone is sitting on the counter. Her wallet is there. Her medications. Her car is still in the garage. Everything exactly where it should be. Everything except Nancy. 12:03 in the afternoon. 911 is called. Within hours, Pima County Sheriff's deputies are on scene. Within 24 hours, this has gone from a missing person report to a full criminal investigation. By February the 2nd, Sheriff Chris Nano stood in front of reporters and said the words that stopped everyone cold. Nancy did not leave voluntarily. She could not have walked far on her own. This is a crime scene. Blood. Nancy's blood, confirmed by DNA testing. Found on the front porch, with a trail leading from inside the house back toward the rear door. It was not a massive amount. Not the kind of scene you see in a violent homicide. But it was enough to confirm that she had been injured. Enough to confirm that there had been a struggle. Her pacemaker was not surgically removed. It was forcibly detached, ripped away from its connection, and left on the floor of her own home like it meant nothing. To Nancy, it meant everything. Without it, her heart is at serious risk. Without her daily medication, she could die. And whoever did this knew both of those things. They knew. And they left it behind anyway. The doorbell camera was ripped from the wall. But here is where the suspect made a critical error. They did not know that Google Nest systems retain residual back-end data even without an active cloud subscription. The FBI's digital forensics team spent days working directly with Google engineers to pull data from systems the suspect believed were completely and permanently dead. They recovered timestamps. They recovered proof of exactly when the intrusion happened. There was no forced entry at any door. No broken windows anywhere on the property. Whoever came into that home either had a key, or Nancy Guthrie opened the door herself. Think about what that means. An 84-year-old woman, alone, at 2 in the morning, and she opened the door. That tells investigators one of two things. Either she recognized and trusted the person standing on that porch. Or she was already incapacitated before entry was made. Neither scenario is comforting. Nancy's dog did not bark. Her companion animal, protective, alert by nature, stayed completely silent through whatever happened in that house. There are only two explanations for that. The dog knew the intruder. Or the intruder knew exactly how to keep the dog quiet. This was not random. This was not a stranger who stumbled upon an opportunity. This was someone who knew Nancy's home, knew her routine, knew her medical vulnerabilities, knew where every camera was placed, and had planned this, possibly for weeks. On February the 10th, the FBI released the surveillance footage that changed the entire public conversation around this case. Black and white. Grainy. Shot in near total darkness. But what it shows is unmistakable. A figure approaches Nancy Guthrie's front door. Masked. Gloved. Carrying a backpack. Armed, a holstered firearm is clearly visible at the hip. The person moves with deliberate, methodical intent. They reach up toward the camera with one gloved hand, trying to cover the lens. When that does not work, they reach into a nearby planter, pull out a potted plant, and shove it directly in front of the camera. Then they tear the entire unit from the wall. This is not panic. This is preparation. This person came to that house with a plan. The FBI's Video Forensic Analysis Unit studied that footage frame by frame. They set up a blackout tent at Nancy's home, recreating the exact nighttime lighting conditions the camera had recorded under. They positioned mannequins dressed in clothing matching the suspect's description. They tested different heights, different builds, different backpack sizes, measuring every proportion against fixed reference points in the frame, the door frame, the porch railing, the base of the planter. On February the 12th, they released their official suspect description. Male. Approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall. Average build. Black ski mask. Vinyl gloves. Black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker backpack, a Walmart exclusive brand. Cheap. Available everywhere. Virtually untraceable. That backpack detail matters more than it might seem. Witnesses reported seeing a figure in a gray hoodie and jeans, carrying two backpacks, approximately 4 miles from Nancy's home at 1:52 in the morning, the same night. It may be the same person. Investigators are treating it as a lead. A pair of black gloves was also recovered approximately 1.5 miles from the home. They have been sent to the lab for DNA analysis. Results have not been made public. But here is a detail that should genuinely stop you cold. Investigators asked neighbors for surveillance footage covering two very specific time windows. January the 11th from 9 in the evening to midnight. And January the 31st from 9:30 to 11 in the morning. Why those two dates specifically? Because they believe the suspect was conducting surveillance. Watching Nancy. Casing her property. Learning her routine. The January 11th window suggests reconnaissance 3 full weeks before the abduction. The January 31st morning window suggests that a vehicle may have been parked near Nancy's home for hours before Tommaso even picked her up for dinner. And multiple former FBI agents who independently reviewed the doorbell footage came to the same conclusion about something else, something important. This person has never done this before. The way they reach for the camera. The hesitation before tearing it down. The improvised decision to use a plant from the planter to block the lens, that is not a practiced move. That is someone thinking on their feet. Someone who planned obsessively for this specific target, but who had never actually executed anything like this before. Not a professional. Not a hired operative. Someone who knew Nancy's world, but who was operating well outside their own. If you are still watching at this point, drop a comment right now with, "I'm still here." Let's see who is truly following this case. And while you're down there, hit that like button. It takes 1 second and it helps this video reach the person who might actually recognize that masked figure. Now let's keep going, because this investigation is about to get complicated. Let's talk about Tommaso Cian. Tommaso Cian is 50 years old. He was born on June the 18th, 1975, in San Giovanni Valdarno, Tuscany, Italy. He has been married to Nancy's oldest daughter Annie since September 2006. They have one son. He teaches 6th grade and AP biology at Basis Oro Valley School in Tucson. He was the last confirmed person to see Nancy Guthrie alive. He dropped her off at 9:48 on the evening of January the 31st. That is confirmed. On February the 4th, the FBI searched Tommaso and Annie's home. They came back on February the 8th. A vehicle was towed from their property. Law enforcement was seen inside the residence with bright flashes consistent with forensic photography. Annie's car was reportedly impounded. Around the same period, Annie privatized or deleted Facebook photos that had featured Tommaso. And Tommaso had not been seen publicly in over a week. Critically, he did not appear in any of the family's public video appeals. But here is where this channel holds a different standard than entertainment media. NewsNation journalist Ashley Banfield claimed around February the 3rd and 4th that a highly regarded law enforcement source told her Tommaso may be the prime suspect. TMZ and tabloid outlets ran with that claim across every platform they had. Not one official law enforcement agency has corroborated it. Not the FBI. Not the Pima County Sheriff. Nobody. Sheriff Nanos has stated on the record, repeatedly, at this point, investigators have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case. No one has been ruled out, but no suspects have been identified. Multiple investigators have also noted that Tommaso Cian appears significantly taller than the 5'9" to 5'10" figure captured on the doorbell footage. If that observation is accurate, he is not the person who physically stood at that door and tore down that camera. Does that mean he had no involvement in any capacity? The evidence cannot answer that yet, because the evidence has not answered that. What it means is, we do not have proof he was the masked figure. Those are two very different things, and this channel will not treat them as the same. Online communities have also fixated on a man named Dominic Evans, the drummer in Tommaso's Tucson-based band, Early Black. The focus comes from a physical resemblance to the masked figure and a reported criminal history that includes felony charges. But Dominic Evans has not been named by any law enforcement agency, not as a suspect, not as a person of interest. That is social media speculation, not case evidence. We will not treat it as the same thing. The only person formally detained in connection with this case is Carlos Palos, a delivery driver from Rio Rico, approximately 60 miles south of Tucson near the Mexican border. He was pulled over in a traffic stop on February the 10th, hours after the FBI released the doorbell footage. His home was searched. He was questioned for approximately 8 hours. Then he was released without charges. He told reporters he had never heard of Nancy Guthrie. Law enforcement has effectively ruled him out. Multiple ransom communications surfaced in the days after Nancy's disappearance. None have been authenticated. None have been confirmed as coming from the actual kidnapper. Around February the 2nd and 3rd, emails were sent to TMZ and 2 Tucson television stations. The demand was $6 million in Bitcoin, payable to a specific wallet address. The deadline was 5 o'clock in the afternoon on February the 5th. That deadline passed. A second deadline was set for February the 9th. That deadline passed too. No confirmed contact. No proof of life. Silence. On February the 5th, TMZ's Harvey Levin reported receiving a letter claiming Nancy is alive and scared. Authenticity unknown. Law enforcement has not verified it. On February the 11th, TMZ received a third communication. Someone claiming to know the kidnapper's identity demanded 1 Bitcoin, roughly $66,000 to $70,000, to a different wallet address. The following day, that same person sent a follow-up message, "I am not being taken seriously." A retired FBI agent who analyzed the original ransom note flagged a significant linguistic detail. The note used the abbreviation USD. An American almost never writes that. We say dollars. The use of USD suggests either a foreign author, or someone deliberately performing a foreign identity. Either way, that is a meaningful tell. The Guthrie family confirmed that at least 1 Bitcoin transaction was made to the original ransom wallet address around 5 in the afternoon on February the 11th. Who made it? Was it the family acting on instructions? A third party? We do not know. As of February the 9th, the FBI stated it was not aware of any continued communication between the Guthrie family and suspected kidnappers. And then there was Derek Calella. Derek Calella. 42 years old. Hawthorne, California. On February the 4th, the very same day the Guthrie family released their first public video plea, Calella sent fake ransom texts to Annie Guthrie and Tommaso. The message read, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We are waiting on our end for the transaction." Authorities traced the internet phone line back to his Gmail account and home address within hours. When questioned, Calella admitted he had been following along and watching the news coverage, and had pulled the family's contact information from a People search website. He had no involvement in the kidnapping. He had no information. He was simply someone who chose to exploit a family at their most desperate and vulnerable moment. He was charged with transmitting a demand for ransom in interstate commerce and misuse of a telecommunications device, both federal charges. He appeared in court in Santa Ana on February the 6th, then in Tucson on February the 13th. He was released before trial on a $20,000 bond with device monitoring and travel restrictions. The FBI called him a grief profiteer. It is also worth noting that in October 2025, the Los Angeles County District Attorney named Calella among 13 county employees charged with stealing over $430,000 in unemployment benefits. He is not a suspect in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. He is simply proof that when a family is in crisis, the worst of human nature does not hesitate to move in. Savannah Guthrie stepped away from the Today Show. She canceled her co-hosting duties for the 2026 Winter Olympics opening ceremonies. She put her entire professional life on hold. On February the 4th, flanked by her siblings Annie and Cameron, she looked directly into a camera, the kind she has spent decades standing in front of, and she spoke to whoever took her mother. She is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman. We are begging whoever has her, please reach out. 3 days later, on February the 7th, the language of her plea had shifted. Language analysts noticed it immediately. We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us. This is very valuable to us and we will pay. February the 9th. Savannah alone. No siblings. Her voice barely holding. This is our hour of desperation. February the 10th, she shared the FBI doorbell footage directly to her own platforms. Someone out there recognizes this person. February the 12th, a home movie. Nancy smiling. Nancy laughing with her grandchildren. The caption read, "Our lovely mom. We will never give up on her." President Trump personally called Savannah on February the 4th, offering additional federal resources. The White House posted publicly about the case. FBI Director Kash Patel appeared on national television claiming substantial progress and multiple persons of interest, but when pressed for any details at all, he offered none. Over 400 people attended a candlelight vigil at St. Philip's in the Hills Episcopal Church on February the 4th. Neighbors left flowers and handwritten notes outside Nancy's home. Yellow ribbons appeared across the Catalina Foothills. Now we have to talk about something that may be costing Nancy Guthrie time she does not have. The FBI did not simply join this investigation. They took it over. Hundreds of agents. A 24-hour command post. Crisis management specialists flown in from Quantico. Digital forensics teams working directly with Google engineers. Video analysis units running full scene reconstructions in blackout tents. Behavioral analysts profiling the suspect. Linguists examining ransom note syntax. The full operational and financial weight of the federal government, deployed in Tucson, Arizona. And it is being blocked. On February the 12th, Reuters broke the story. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos is refusing to allow the FBI to process critical physical evidence at the FBI's National Crime Lab in Quantico, Virginia, the finest forensic facility in the entire country. The evidence in question, the glove recovered 1.5 miles from Nancy's home, and the DNA samples collected directly from the crime scene. Nanos says he wants all evidence processed through DNA Labs International, a private contracted lab in Fort Myers, Florida, at a reported cost of approximately $200,000. His stated justification is consistency. He wants everything routed through the same facility. The FBI's response, through unnamed federal officials speaking to Reuters, was direct: it risks further slowing a case that grows more urgent by the minute. Former federal prosecutors and former FBI agents have gone on the record to condemn this decision. Megyn Kelly devoted a full segment to it. Nancy Grace called it unconscionable. The argument is not complicated. Why would any official, under any set of circumstances, choose a private contracted lab in Florida over the FBI's National Crime Lab in Quantico, when an elderly woman's life depends on the speed of those results? Critics have one answer: ego. Sheriff Nanos does not want to be overshadowed in his own jurisdiction by the federal government. Nanos denies this. He maintains he is protecting evidentiary consistency. But this is not the first procedural failure in this investigation. Early on, the Pima County Sheriff's Department released Nancy's home back to the family before completing their full forensic documentation. They were then forced to re-enter the scene, a scene that had already been accessed and potentially disturbed, to collect additional evidence. That is not standard protocol. That is potential contamination of a primary crime scene. Meanwhile, the FBI is doing everything it legally can within those constraints. The reward has doubled, from $50,000 to $100,000. Digital billboards displaying Nancy's photo and the suspect description are running in Los Angeles, Phoenix, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Albuquerque. Agents are going door to door through surrounding neighborhoods. Over 18,000 tips have been received and are actively being worked. Now let's sit with the questions this case cannot yet answer, because in a real case analysis, the unanswered questions are just as important as the established facts. Was this a kidnapping for ransom, or is the ransom a cover story? The $6 million demand is unusual, not because of the amount itself, but because of the deadlines that came and went without any consequence or escalation. Standard ransom operations maintain leverage through proof of life and real-time pressure. Neither of those things has happened here. Either the kidnapper does not understand how ransom negotiations work, which actually aligns with the FBI's assessment of a first-time actor, or the ransom was never really the point. And if it was never the point, then what is? Why $6 million specifically? $6 million is a precise number. Not 5. Not 10. Why 6? Is it calibrated to what someone believes Savannah Guthrie can realistically access? If so, that suggests someone with close knowledge of the family's financial situation. Or is it symbolic in some way, 6 family members, 6 million? Or is there no meaning at all, just a number that sounds appropriately large and ransom-like? The amount tells investigators something about the suspect's knowledge. If they know Savannah's financial position, they are close to this family. If they guessed, they may not be. What is happening in this investigation that we are not allowed to see? Everything covered in this analysis is public information, press releases, news reports, family statements, official announcements. Criminal investigations do not happen in public. 90% of the real work is invisible. There are witnesses being interviewed who have not been named. Search warrants being executed that have not been reported. Phone records, financial records, cell tower data, surveillance footage that has never been released. All of that is happening. It has to be. But it will not become public until there is an arrest. Or until there is a body. FBI Director Patel said there has been substantial progress. That phrase can mean two entirely different things. It can mean they have identified the suspect but do not yet have enough evidence to make an arrest. Or it can mean nothing, public relations designed to reassure the family, pressure the suspect, and maintain public confidence while investigators are working as hard as they can. We cannot know which one it is from the outside. Is Nancy Guthrie still alive? This is the question that haunts everyone who has been following this case. The family believes she is. They are acting as though she is. They are negotiating. They are pleading. They are praying. But hope is not evidence. 13 days without her pacemaker connected. 13 days without her heart medication. 84 years old. Chronic heart conditions. Even if the kidnapper is providing food and water. Even if she is in a temperature-controlled environment. Even if she is not being actively harmed, her body is in danger. Heart medication is not optional. Miss a few doses and you are in arrhythmia. Miss a week and you are approaching heart failure. Miss 2 weeks and the outcome is likely fatal. Unless the kidnapper has medical knowledge. Unless they know precisely what medications she requires and are providing them. Unless they are deliberately keeping her alive, which raises an obvious question that nobody has a good answer to. If they are keeping her alive, why is there no proof of life? Why no photograph? Why no audio recording of Nancy saying she is okay? That is standard in kidnapping cases. The kidnapper provides proof to demonstrate the victim is still valuable, still worth paying for. The complete absence of any verified proof of life is the single most troubling detail in this entire case. It suggests one of two things. Either the kidnapper does not understand how ransom negotiations work. Or Nancy Guthrie is already dead, and there is no proof of life to provide. Investigators are working both possibilities simultaneously. Searching for her as though she is alive. Investigating as though she may not be. Preparing the family for both outcomes, while holding on to hope for the one everyone is praying for. This investigation is at an inflection point. Either something breaks open in the next few days, or the trail goes cold. And once that happens, it becomes extraordinarily difficult to recover. The FBI needs those gloves analyzed at the best facility available. They need that DNA processed at Quantico, not a private contracted lab in Florida. They need to trace the vehicle that may have been surveilling Nancy's home on January the 11th. They need to interview every person who had any access to her property. They need to follow the Bitcoin transaction. They need to analyze every ransom communication at the deepest linguistic level. They need more search warrants, more pressure, and they need someone in the suspect's orbit to make the decision to come forward and talk. Sheriff Nanos needs to step aside and let the FBI do what the FBI does. Those gloves cannot sit in an evidence queue because of jurisdictional politics. That DNA cannot wait for bureaucratic alignment. Every single hour of delay is an hour that Nancy Guthrie does not have. The family needs to keep the pressure on law enforcement, on the media, on the public. Nancy's face needs to stay in front of people. The reward needs to stay visible. The tip line needs to stay open and active. This case cannot be allowed to disappear from the headlines. And the public, all of us, need to stay in this. Someone knows something. A neighbor who noticed an unfamiliar car parked too long in the wrong place. A coworker who heard something that never quite sat right. A friend whose behavior changed after February the 1st. Someone who has been following this case a little too closely. Someone who came home that night acting differently. That person needs to come forward. Anonymously if necessary, through the FBI tip line, through Crime Stoppers, through a lawyer, through whatever channel makes them feel safe enough to do it. But they need to come forward. Because 13 days in, Nancy Guthrie is still out there. And the window to bring her home is closing. This case is solvable. The evidence exists. The suspect exists. The answers exist. They have just not been found yet, but they will be. Cases like this do not stay unsolved forever. Eventually someone talks. Eventually someone makes a mistake. Eventually the truth comes out. It might be tomorrow. It might be next month. It might be years from now, a deathbed confession, a piece of evidence re-examined with new technology, a DNA match that closes the loop on everything. But eventually, we will know what happened to Nancy Guthrie. The question is whether we will know in time to save her, or only in time to understand what was done to her. 13 days in. We are still waiting for that answer. Nancy Ellen Guthrie. 84 years old. Mother. Grandmother. Widow. Woman of faith. 17 years at the University of Arizona. Active in her church until the night she was taken. Still missing. Still out there somewhere. If you know anything, anything at all, call the FBI. Call the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Call Crime Stoppers. The tip line is open 24 hours a day. The reward is $100,000. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Go to tips.fbi.gov. And if you are the person who took her, if you are watching this right now, hear this. It is not too late. You can still make the call. You can still let her go. You can still make this right. Because every hour that passes, more evidence is collected. More connections are made. More witnesses are found. The net is tightening. Eventually it will close. You can wait for that moment, or you can end this now. Let Nancy Guthrie come home. That is all anyone wants. Just let her come home. This is Case Analysis Bureau. This case is not solved. But it will be. And we will be here when it is. Nancy, we are looking for you. We have not given up. We will not give up. Before you close this video, drop your theory in the comments right now. Someone who knew Nancy personally. A hired operation? Something else entirely? We are building a full viewer case file and we want to hear what you think. Subscribe to Case Analysis Bureau so you get part 2 the moment it drops, because this investigation is not over, and neither are we. $100,000. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tips.fbi.gov. If you see something, say something.